Welcome to Learn with MS English. Let's speak English with confidence.
Have you ever had that moment where you're just, standing in the hallway at work and your boss's boss walks by?
Oh, that's always a high-stress situation right off the bat.
Right. And they stop and they ask you a completely simple, basic question about a project you've been managing for like 6 months.
Something you know inside and out.
Exactly. You absolutely know the answer. You have lived and breathed this data. But suddenly, your brain just throws a massive 404 error.
Total system failure.
Yeah. You just stand there, your mouth opens, you stammer out a few totally disconnected syllables, and you finally mumble something barely coherent.
And it's just the worst feeling.
It really is. And then, of course, 3 hours later while you're driving home, that's when the absolute perfect, clever response pops into your head, long after the moment has entirely passed.
We have all lived some version of that exact nightmare. I mean, the frustrating part is that the data is completely intact in our heads.
Yeah, it's not like you forgot the project.
Right. The failure isn't a lack of knowledge. It's really just a mechanical failure of your brain's retrieval system under pressure. And whether you're standing at a podium or, just trying to sound intelligent at a dinner party, that mental roadblock is the exact same.
Which brings us to today's deep dive. We are looking at a really insightful breakdown from an English learning resource called the English Leap video.
It's a fantastic resource.
It really is. Now, this material was originally designed to help language learners figure out how to think fast and speak smart.
Right, focusing on people learning a new language.
Exactly. But as you dig into their sources, it becomes immediately clear that the psychology, the mental roadblocks, and the tactical solutions they discuss, they apply to absolutely everyone.
Oh, 100%. The mechanics of human communication are remarkably consistent.
Yeah, you don't need to be learning a second language to suddenly forget your own name when somebody points a microphone in your face.
Exactly. The cognitive friction a language learner experiences when they're, searching for a vocabulary word, it's the exact same friction a native speaker experiences when they're trying to sound impressive in a high-stakes meeting.
So our mission for this deep dive is to decode those mechanics.
Yeah.
We want to uncover what actually causes these mental freezes.
Because there is a very real biological reason for it.
Right. And then we'll explore some highly practical everyday exercises to train the brain to respond with genuine confidence. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
I always assumed my brain froze in those moments because, maybe I just didn't know the topic well enough.
Which is what everyone assumes, right?
Yeah. But looking at these sources, it seems like it's actually the complete opposite. It's having too much information and trying to sort it all at once.
That is a brilliant way to reframe it, honestly.
Yeah.
The source material points to a few primary culprits for conversational hesitation, and the absolute biggest one is overthinking.
Just having too much happening in your head.
Exactly. I mean, we possess these massive archives of information, so when you're asked a question, your brain tries to simultaneously retrieve the data, format it perfectly, and anticipate how the listener is going to judge it.
All at the exact same time.
Right. And the resource uses this really great analogy for this. Imagine you're writing a text message to someone important.
Oh no, I know where this is going.
You type it out, you delete it, you tweak a word, you rewrite the whole thing, and you read it like 3 times before you finally hit send.
Oh, the dreaded text message overdrafting. I think we all have a PhD in that.
We really do. Now, just imagine attempting that exact same drafting and editing process in a live, face-to-face conversation.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. People try to construct the absolute flawless, bulletproof sentence in their minds before they even open their mouths. But live dialogue moves in milliseconds.
Right. You don't have 3 minutes to stare at a screen.
Exactly. By the time your brain finishes architecting that perfect sentence, the conversational window has closed, and it just leaves you standing there in awkward silence.
Wow. So it's basically perfectionism actively destroying connection.
That's exactly what it is.
And the sources point out that this over-editing is tied heavily to a fear of sounding silly or, making a mistake. If you're terrified of a misstep, you hesitate.
Right.
And that hesitation leads to the second culprit, which is the sudden mental block. The example they give is so perfectly infuriating.
Oh, I love this example.
Right. Someone casually asks you, hey, what's your favorite movie?
And instantly, your brain decides you have never seen a movie in your entire life.
You cannot name a single film.
Yeah.
You've watched hundreds of them. You own a television, but put on the spot, the brain just hits a brick wall.
It just totally blanks. And of course, there's also the language barrier aspect mentioned in the text.
Right, for the language learners.
Yeah. If you're speaking a second language, the translation process adds this explicit layer of cognitive load, which understandably slows down the response time even more.
Well, and overcoming this isn't just a neat party trick, right? The stakes are actually quite high for your career and your social life.
Very high. The material cites research from the Harvard Business Review on this.
Oh, yeah, noting that clear and confident speakers gain significantly more credibility and influence in professional settings.
Exactly. The harsh reality is that when you hesitate excessively, listeners subconsciously interpret that hesitation as a lack of preparation.
Even if you're factually the most qualified person in the room.
Right. They just assume you lack confidence in your own expertise.
Which brings up a really crucial misconception that the sources emphasize. We tend to conflate thinking fast with speaking fast.
Oh, this is such a common trap.
It really is. I mean, we watch movies where the smartest character in the room talks a mile a minute, so we assume speed equals intelligence.
Right, the fast-talking genius trope.
Yeah. But the text makes a rigorous distinction between speed and clarity. They are totally different things.
They are completely different metrics of communication. Rushing actually severely diminishes your clarity.
I really appreciate the driving metaphor they use in the breakdown to explain that.
Oh, that's a great one.
They compare speaking to driving a car to a destination. You do not need to push the car to 100 miles an hour to get there quickly. You just need to know the optimal route.
Exactly.
In a conversation, speaking clearly, concisely, and at a moderate pace gets your point across so much faster than mashing the gas pedal and just tumbling through your words.
What's fascinating here is that the speed myth actually creates a negative feedback loop.
How so?
Well, when you try to talk too fast to seem smart, your mouth outpaces your brain. You inevitably trip over a word or you lose your train of thought.
Right, which feels terrible.
Exactly. And that instantly damages your internal confidence, causing you to panic and stumble even more.
It's a downward spiral.
But when you focus on clarity taking, that optimal, well-paved route you mentioned, quick thinking doesn't just make you sound more confident to others. It actively makes you feel more confident.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it becomes a stabilizing, positive feedback loop.
Okay, so we've established that rushing makes us stumble. But, I mean, in the moment when your boss puts you on the spot and your heart is pounding so loud, you can literally hear it.
Which is terrifying.
It is. It's incredibly easy to say, hey, take the best route, don't rush. But how do you actually stop that physical panic loop from forcing you to speed up? Let's look at managing the immediate physical reaction to pressure.
Well, the physical component is arguably the most important piece to solve first.
Really? Before the mental part?
Absolutely. When you're put on the spot, your brain literally perceives a threat. It doesn't differentiate between a difficult project question and, like, a physical predator.
Wow.
It triggers the amygdala, initiating the classic fight-or-flight response. The source material notes that under this kind of pressure, the physiological panic entirely overrides your working memory.
Oh, so it's like watching a contestant on a trivia game show.
Yes, exactly.
They clearly know the answer. They know the capital of France. But the timer is ticking, the studio lights are glaring, the pressure is immense, and they just blurt out pizza.
Right. Because their brain is completely short-circuiting.
It's so funny, but so true.
The cognitive functioning is literally hijacked by adrenaline. So the source offers an immediate physiological fix before you even attempt to speak.
Okay, what is it?
Take a slow, deep breath.
Just breathe. I mean, if you're listening right now and thinking, I'm just an anxious person, breathing isn't going to fix my personality, the research refutes that, right?
It completely refutes it.
Because this isn't about changing your personality. It's a mechanical process.
Absolutely. I know it sounds like a cliche wellness tip, but mechanically, a slow, deep breath acts as a biological override.
How does that actually work?
When you deliberately slow your breathing, you stimulate the vagus nerve. That sends a direct signal to your nervous system that you are not in physical danger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it breaks the panic cycle, dials down the adrenaline, and allows the higher reasoning parts of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, to come back online so you can actually access your vocabulary again.
Okay, so you take the breath, you signal the nervous system to chill out, but you still need to answer the question, and that silence is just hanging in the air.
Right, the awkward pause.
Yeah. This is where the source introduces tactical stalling, or what they call time fillers.
These are your conversational buffers. Phrases like, that is a really great question, or let me think about that for a second, or even a thoughtful, well, it really depends.
I love this concept so much. To me, time fillers are exactly like the loading spinner you see on a streaming video.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
You know, when a video buffers, that little circle keeps spinning to let you know, hey, the app hasn't crashed, we're just pulling the data.
Yes.
Time fillers do exactly that for your listener. They keep the audience engaged while your brain is doing the heavy data retrieval in the background.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. It prevents that deafening, awkward silence that makes both you and the listener uncomfortable.
Right.
And the material suggests another slightly more advanced technique in the same vein, which is paraphrasing.
Paraphrasing. So rewording the question, like if someone asks, what do you think about the new Q3 project timeline? You respond with, oh, my thoughts on the Q3 timeline. Well, I think.
Exactly. That simple repetition buys you an extra 2 or 3 seconds to organize your thoughts. And it also helps your brain process the scope of the question, especially if any of the terms were unclear.
And I have to push back on this one a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
If my boss is asking me questions all day and I am just repeating them back, don't I run a serious risk of sounding like a robotic parrot? Like, where are the reports? Where are the reports?
Sure.
I feel like if I do that, the person I'm talking to is going to instantly realize I'm stalling.
Well, if you repeat the question verbatim, word for word, in a monotone voice, yes, you will absolutely sound like a stalling parrot.
Right.
But the text emphasizes that natural delivery is the key. You aren't acting like a tape recorder. You are digesting their core concept and feeding it back.
Give me an example of the difference. How do I do it naturally?
So if the boss asks, why did the marketing budget exceed projections last month? The parrot response is just repeating it blindly. Why did the marketing budget exceed projections last month?
Yeah, that sounds totally robotic.
Right. But the active paraphrasing response is more like, oh, you're looking for the breakdown on last month's marketing overspend. Let's see.
Okay, I see the distinction.
Mm-hmm.
By altering the phrasing slightly, it doesn't sound like a stall tactic at all. It actually proves I was actively listening to them.
Exactly. You are validating their concern while clarifying the scope of the question. You turn a moment of internal panic into a display of active, visible engagement.
That's really
It
smart.
makes the other person feel heard, which actually builds rapport, all while secretly giving your brain those 2 crucial seconds it needs to boot up the answer.
That completely changes the utility of the tactic for me.
Okay.
So you've taken your deep breath to kill the panic. You've used your loading spinner to buy time. Now the floor is yours.
Time to speak.
Right. How do you actually construct your answer without tripping over your own words once you finally start talking?
This brings us to the actual architecture of the answer. The source identifies a critical strategy here, which is the power of simple structures.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this loops right back to the overthinking and perfectionism issue we discussed at the start.
Exactly. People under pressure feel this immense burden to formulate these complex, labyrinthine sentences just to prove their intelligence.
Yeah, we try to sound like professors.
But the advice from the text is to keep it radically simple and direct. They suggest imagining that you are explaining your core point to a 5-year-old.
There is a deep, tragic irony in how we communicate in professional settings. We try to construct these massive academic-sounding sentences with 4 different clauses because we want to sound smart.
We all do it.
But trying to juggle all those complex grammatical rules while simultaneously searching for facts, that is exactly what causes us to stutter, lose our train of thought, and ultimately look unsure of ourselves. True credibility actually comes from radical simplicity and clarity.
Absolutely. By trying to sound smarter, you trigger the cognitive overload that makes you sound lost.
Right.
Which is why the resource recommends relying on short, pre-structured templates.
What kind of templates are we talking about? Like fill-in-the-blank style?
Yeah, very basic frameworks. Starting your response with, I think this because, or my opinion is, or there are 2 main reasons. You do not need to invent a novel sentence structure for every thought.
I want to break down the mechanism of why that works because it's fascinating. If I use a template like my perspective is, the grammar and the syntax are completely pre-built.
Right, the structure is already there.
My brain no longer has to spend computing power figuring out where the verbs and nouns go.
Yeah.
It means 100% of my working memory can be devoted exclusively to just finding the right vocabulary words for the data.
That is the exact cognitive mechanism at play. It dramatically lowers your cognitive load. It's like having the foundation and the walls of a house already built. You just have to walk in and arrange the furniture.
That is such a good way to put it.
And there's another structural strategy they mention that leans into this idea of reducing cognitive load, which is anticipating responses.
Oh, right. Thinking like a chess player. predicting the opponent's moves.
Yes.
The text uses a very grounding, everyday example for this.
Yeah.
Walking into a coffee shop.
Think about it. When you walk up to a barista, you never freeze when they speak to you. Why? Because you already know exactly what they're going to ask.
They're going to ask what you want to order.
Right.
You have anticipated the interaction, so there is zero panic. The script is already written in your head.
Yeah.
And the source argues we should aggressively apply this to daily life.
Everywhere we can.
Yeah. Before a meeting, or even just before running into a chatty coworker in the break room, you can prepare modular answers for predictable questions, like, how was your weekend? Or what's the status on the Johnson account?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of how the brain manages energy, anticipation is a massive efficiency tool.
How so?
Well, our brains consume an enormous amount of metabolic energy processing novel, unexpected information. So by anticipating these predictable, routine interactions, you drastically reduce the number of surprises your brain has to process in a given day.
You're basically putting the routine parts of your life on autopilot.
Precisely. Which reserves your finite mental energy and quick thinking capacity for the truly complex, high-stakes interactions where you actually need to generate a unique response.
But that raises the ultimate question, doesn't it? Anticipation is fantastic for a coffee shop or a structured job interview where you know the general parameters,
Sure.
but you cannot predict everything. What happens when a conversation goes completely off script, your templates don't fit, and you have to just fly blind?
When you cannot predict the future, you have to become incredibly grounded in the present moment. And the source identifies the foundational superpower for handling unscripted moments.
Which is?
Active listening.
Okay. Active listening is a buzzword we hear thrown around in literally every corporate wellness seminar.
I know, it sounds a bit cliche.
It does. But the way they explain the function of it here is incredibly practical.
It really is. Most people, when they are engaged in a conversation, are not actually listening.
Right.
They are just waiting for their turn to speak. They're using the time while the other person is talking to internally draft their own next sentence.
Guilty as charged.
We all
Yes.
do it. But active listening means shutting down that internal drafting process entirely and focusing intensely on the keywords, the tone, and the context of what the other person is delivering.
They share an analogy in the text that created a massive aha moment for me. They compare active listening to watching a foreign movie with subtitles.
Oh, I love this part.
If you zone out and miss a visual cue, you can just glance down at the subtitles to catch up and understand what's happening. If you are actively listening, the other person's actual words become your subtitles.
Let's extrapolate on why that subtitle analogy is so powerful. When you are fully locked into their words, you don't have to invent a brilliant response out of thin air.
Right. The pressure is off.
You are essentially outsourcing your brain's processing power to the other person. You take their words, their concepts, and you use them as the architectural foundation for your answer.
So you literally have to think 50% less because they have provided half the material.
Exactly.
You are just taking their Lego bricks and adding one of your own to the top of the tower.
That's a great way to look at it.
And this ability to respond in the moment without overdrafting isn't just a genetic trait you're either born with or not. The sources frame it as a highly trainable skill, leaning into the concept of improvisation.
Improv isn't just for comedians on a stage. It is a highly effective, structured way to train the brain's muscle memory for real-time processing.
And to silence that internal perfectionist we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
The breakdown highlights two specific exercises to build this improv gym for your brain. The first is word association.
It's a classic.
The rule is simple. You hear a word, and you instantly say the very first word that pops into your head. No pausing, no filtering.
Like zero hesitation.
Right. Let's actually demonstrate this right now so people can hear the pacing. I'll throw a word to you.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, apple,
Juice.
tree,
Leaves.
fall.
Winter.
Perfect. Okay, so analyzing what just happened there, if you had stopped after leaves and thought, wait, is fall the most sophisticated word I can use? Maybe I should say autumn.
The entire rhythm dies.
Right. The conversation just stops.
The game forces you to trust your brain's very first instinct. By moving at that speed, you bypass the internal editor entirely. You teach your nervous system that the first thought is usually good enough to keep the conversation moving.
And the second exercise they recommend for the improv gym takes that a step further. It's called 30-second storytelling.
This one is a bit harder.
It is. You take a completely random word like bicycle, and you force yourself to tell a coherent story about a bicycle for 30 seconds without stopping or self-correcting.
Right, you just have to keep talking.
It trains you to maintain the flow of speech, even if the narrative isn't perfect, rather than stopping halfway through a sentence to rewrite it in your head.
It builds incredible resilience. You learn that even if you take a weird conversational turn, you can talk your way out of it without panicking.
No, I have to share one more highly tactical takeaway from the sources.
Yeah.
It applies to perhaps the most horrifying, unscripted moment of all.
Oh, boy.
When you run into someone you know and you completely forget their name.
The ultimate panic-inducing scenario, the amygdala just goes into overdrive.
Absolute fight or flight. But instead of freezing and staring blankly or giving a generic, "Hey, man," the trick from the text is to use a specific time filler that actively aids your memory retrieval.
It's so smart.
You look at them warmly and say, "I remember you from Kelor," and let the sentence hang for a split second.
That is an incredibly clever deployment of a time filler, because by vocalizing that phrase, you aren't just stalling to hide your panic.
What are you doing?
You are actively prompting your own brain to search its contextual memory banks. You are narrowing the search field from every person I have ever met to, where did I see this specific face?
And it prompts them to fill in the blank. They might jump in and say, "Oh, the marketing conference." And boom, you are saved, the conversation flows smoothly, and you look completely engaged.
This raises an important question, though, about where we focus our conversational energy.
How do you mean?
Well, we tend to look at people who are quick on their feet, who handle high-pressure questions with ease, and we assume they were just blessed with a genetic gift for gab.
Right, that they're just naturally charismatic.
But everything in the source material proves that is a myth. Quick thinking is a trainable mechanical process. It's a muscle.
So to bring all of this together for the listening, quick thinking, whether you're stepping into a high-stakes board meeting or just trying to navigate a casual chat at the grocery store, is absolutely not about perfection.
Not at all.
It is not about speaking a million miles an hour to sound like the smartest person in the room.
Right.
It is about preparation.
Yes.
It's about recognizing that physiological panic and actively shutting it down with a deep breath. It's about using time fillers to buffer the silence, relying on simple templates to reduce your cognitive load, and above all, outsourcing your processing power through active listening.
You do not have to be perfect. You just need to be present, and you need to trust the data that is already in your head.
I highly encourage you to try that word association game today. Maybe when you're driving or cooking, see how hard it is to shut off your internal editor. Or consciously deploy a time filler. Like, that is a great question the next time your boss puts you on the spot.
It really works.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought that builds on everything we've explored.
Where are we going with this?
In the source material, there is a passing comparison that really stuck with me. They note that building conversational fluency is a lot like learning to play an instrument. It requires time and repetition. But let's take that concept to its logical conclusion. If everyday conversations are literally just practice sessions for this mental muscle, how might reframing your daily awkward moments completely eliminate your fear of making mistakes?
Oh, wow. That is a profound shift in perspective.
Think about it. If you stammer or use the wrong vocabulary word, or your brain freezes during a status update, what if that isn't a permanent social failure?
What if it's just practice?
Exactly. What if it's literally just the equivalent of hitting a wrong note or sitting alone practicing the piano? You do not quit playing the piano forever because of one wrong note. You simply adjust your finger and keep playing the song.
That's a really freeing way to look at it.
If we can view every verbal stumble, every awkward pause, as just a necessary part of the practice routine for the brain's improv gym, the paralyzing fear of speaking might just disappear entirely.
Absolutely.
Keep that in mind the next time you find yourself desperately searching for the right words.